The autumn light slipped through the tall windows of Thornbury Manor with a soft golden glow that belonged only to October afternoons. It warmed the room just enough to make one forget the cold creeping through the old stone walls. Arabella Thornton sat in her usual chair near the fireplace, close enough to be useful but never close enough to be important. She held an open book and read aloud in a steady, pleasant voice. She disliked the novel deeply. The writing was dramatic to the point of nonsense, the heroine impossibly pure, and the villain so obvious that there was no suspense at all. Still, the Dowager Duchess of Thornbury loved such stories, and Arabella had learned that love, not taste, determined her duties. "Do pause, child," the Dowager said suddenly. "My ears require rest from such passion." Arabella closed the book with quiet relief and looked toward the older woman. The Dowager Duchess sat in her high-backed chair like a queen on her throne, wrapped in black silk and violet shawls. Her white hair was arranged in a style long out of fashion, and her dark eyes were still sharp despite her 73 years. "Shall I ring for tea, Your Grace?" Arabella asked. In a moment, the Dowager replied, "First tell me, have you noticed anything different about the house today?" Arabella knew this was a test. The Dowager enjoyed testing her observation and wit. Arabella thought carefully before answering. "The household is preparing for an arrival," she said, "someone important. The green guest chamber has been opened. Fresh flowers were placed in the entrance hall, despite the cost, and cook has been studying menus that require French sauces." The Dowager's thin lips curved slightly. "Very good. My grandson arrives this evening." Arabella's heart shifted uncomfortably in her chest, but her face remained calm. "His Grace is coming to Thornbury. He was not expected until Christmas." "He was not," the Dowager agreed. "I summoned him." She fixed Arabella with a direct gaze. "I've written to inform him that I have selected his bride and will tolerate no further delays in the matter of succession. He is 31 years old. It is quite enough." Arabella absorbed this news in silence. She had witnessed many eligible young women visit the manor in recent weeks. Lady Georgiana Blackmore had seemed the obvious choice. Beautiful, well-connected, admired by everyone. "That is welcome news, Your Grace," Arabella said politely. "Is it?" the Dowager asked. "You do not look pleased." "I am pleased for whatever brings Your Grace satisfaction." The Dowager gave a sound that might have been laughter. "You are the most accomplished liar I have ever employed, child. Ring for tea. And wear the blue dress at dinner. The gray makes you look unwell." Arabella rose and obeyed, grateful to turn away. The blue dress was her finest, a gift from the Dowager the previous Christmas. Wearing it this evening filled her with unease she could not explain. The afternoon passed slowly. Tea, letters, a brief walk in the garden, and then the Dowager's rest. Arabella tried to read in the library, but her thoughts kept circling back to the evening ahead. She had first seen Sebastian Ashworth 3 years earlier, on the day she arrived at Thornbury with one small trunk and no future. He had passed her in the hall without a glance. Since then, she had perfected the art of being invisible. When the word came that the Duke's carriage had been sighted, Arabella joined the household in the great hall. The Dowager descended the stairs dressed in black silk and diamonds. "He will be difficult," she said calmly, "but I have never lost an argument with him." The doors opened, and Sebastian Ashworth entered like a storm. Tall, dark, and severe, with gray eyes that promised conflict. "Grandmother," he said, kissing her cheek, "you summoned me. I trust this will be brief." "Hardly," she replied, "but we shall discuss it after dinner." "I require an explanation," he said sharply. "You have no right to choose my wife." "And yet here you are," she replied. The argument was cold and sharp, each word measured. Sebastian declared he would not marry any woman chosen for him. The Dowager offered a bargain. 1 week, she said. "Spend 1 week with her. If you still refuse, I will cease." Reluctantly, he agreed. "Have your bride presented at dinner?" he said. "The sooner this ends, the better." Later, Arabella was summoned to the dowager's sitting room. She entered to find Sebastian standing by the window. "Sit," the dowager said. "We have been waiting for you." Sebastian turned, his eyes landing on Arabella. Confusion turned quickly to disbelief. "No," he said flatly. "Absolutely not." "Miss Arabella Thornton," the dowager said, "is the bride I have chosen for you." Arabella felt the world tilt. "She is your companion," Sebastian said coldly. "A paid servant." "Look at her," the dowager commanded. He did, truly looked, and his expression held only judgment. Arabella rose. "Your Grace, I must resign." "You may not," the dowager said. "I ask only 1 week." "1 week," Arabella said quietly. The dowager dismissed them, leaving Arabella and Sebastian alone. "I owe you an apology," he said stiffly. "But this marriage will not take place." "We are in agreement," Arabella replied. When he accused her of being part of the scheme, she finally broke, tears falling as she denied it. She fled the room and wept alone that night, mourning not humiliation, but hope. 1 week, she told herself. She could endure. 1 week. Morning arrived at Thornbury Manor with a pale gray light and the quiet sounds of servants beginning their day. Arabella rose before dawn as she always did. Sleep had come in fragments, broken by memories and unwanted hope. She dressed carefully, choosing plain colors, armor against feeling too much. By the time most of the household stirred, she had already completed her duties. She helped the dowager dress, reviewed correspondence, and spoke with the housekeeper about meals for the week. She moved through familiar routines with practiced calm, though her heart jumped at every sound of footsteps in the corridor. "You will breakfast with my grandson," the dowager said suddenly. Arabella froze. "Your Grace, I hardly think that is wise." 1 week, the dowager replied. "You promised me 1 week. That requires effort, not avoidance." Arabella bowed her head. "As you wish." The breakfast room was quiet when she entered. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the table. For a moment, she hoped Sebastian had already eaten. Then the door opened behind her. "Miss Thornton." She turned slowly. Sebastian stood in the doorway, dressed for the morning, his hair still damp, his expression guarded, but not hostile. "My grandmother insists," he said. "It appears we are to become acquainted." Arabella nodded. "So it seems." They sat across from each other, an uncomfortable distance apart. For a time, neither spoke. "I behaved badly last night," Sebastian said at last. "Whatever my feelings, you did not deserve that." "Thank you for saying so," Arabella replied. "We were both surprised." He studied her carefully. "You truly did not know." "No," she said. "If I had, I would not be here." Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the ice. They spoke cautiously at first. About books, about the estate, about small things that carried little risk. Slowly the tension eased. "You are not what I expected," Sebastian said. "I could say the same," Arabella replied before she could stop herself. To her surprise, he smiled faintly. Over the next days, they were often in the same spaces, walks in the garden, shared meals with the dowager, quiet hours in the library. Their conversations grew easier, deeper. Arabella learned that Sebastian was thoughtful and sharp-minded, that his coldness hid a deep sense of duty and old grief. Sebastian learned that Arabella's quiet nature masked strong opinions and quiet courage. The dowager watched them with satisfaction. "He sees you," she said one afternoon. "He sees a distraction," Arabella replied. "A puzzle for a week." "Do not underestimate yourself," the dowager said. On the 4th day, the storm came. Dark clouds gathered over the hills, and rain fell in sheets. A messenger arrived, soaked and trembling with news that the river had flooded. Tenant cottages were underwater, families trapped. Sebastian moved instantly. Orders were given. Horses prepared. I am coming, Arabella said. No, Sebastian replied sharply. You need me? She said calmly. I know the families. I know who will need help first. He hesitated, then nodded. Stay close. Do exactly as I say. They rode into chaos. Rain. Mud. Fear. Arabella guided rescue parties. She comforted frightened children. She remembered names and needs. She worked without pause, without complaint. Sebastian watched her with growing awe. By nightfall, the worst had passed. No lives were lost. They sheltered in the groundskeeper's cottage, unable to return to the manor. A fire burned low as rain tapped against the windows. You were remarkable today, Sebastian said quietly. I did what needed to be done. You did far more than that. Silence fell, heavy and charged. I should tell you something, Arabella said suddenly. Yes, I have loved you for 3 years. The words hung between them. Sebastian stared at her. Shock. Then something softer. I loved someone once, he said. She mocked me for it. I swore never again. He stepped closer. And yet, here you are. He touched her face. She did not pull away. They kissed, years of restraint, breaking at once. They sat together until dawn, speaking of wounds and fears, of loneliness and hope. When they returned to Thornbury, a carriage waited in the drive. Sebastian went still. That is the Blackmore crest, he said. Lady Georgiana Blackmore and her mother had arrived. The mood shifted instantly. Lady Georgiana was flawless, elegant, confident. Everything Arabella was not. At dinner, Arabella felt herself shrinking again. Lady Blackmore's words were polished and sharp. Her glances towards Arabella held thinly veiled contempt. Later, in the drawing room, Lady Blackmore spoke softly but cruelly. Do not mistake a passing interest for permanence, she said. Dukes do not marry companions. Arabella fled. Sebastian found her on the servant's stair. He kissed her fiercely. I love you, he said, and I will marry you. Before morning could come, chaos erupted. Lady Georgiana had been discovered in a secret engagement with another man. The dowager revealed everything with calm satisfaction. Sebastian took Arabella's hand. I have asked her to be my wife, he announced. The Blackmores departed in humiliation. Later that night, Sebastian knelt before Arabella in the library. Will you marry me? He asked. Not because you were chosen, but because you are loved. Yes, Arabella said, and for the first time in her life she believed it. The future stood open before them, uncertain but bright. But beyond Thornbury's walls, society was already stirring. And not everyone would accept the Duke's choice without a fight. The morning after the engagement broke clear and cold, as if the storm had scrubbed the world clean. Arabella woke before dawn, staring at the ceiling of her small room beneath the eaves. For a long moment she wondered if everything had been a dream. Then she lifted her hand. The ring on her finger caught the early light, its deep red stone glowing softly. Her breath caught. It was real. A knock came at the door. Miss Thornton? Sarah whispered, barely containing her excitement. Her Grace wishes to see you. And His Grace has asked for you twice already. Arabella smiled despite herself. Please tell Her Grace I will come at once, and tell His Grace that pacing is unbecoming in a duke. Sarah laughed as she hurried away. Arabella dressed carefully, not in gray this time, but in soft blue, the color Sebastian had once said suited her. She paused before the mirror, studying her reflection. She looked the same, yet everything had changed. The dowager sat by the fire, a cup of chocolate at her side. She looked Arabella over with sharp satisfaction. Sit, child, she said. Let me see you properly. Arabella obeyed. You look different, the dowager said. Not dressed differently. Different inside. I feel different, Arabella admitted. You should. You are no longer invisible. The dowager leaned forward. Did he ask properly? Yes. And you accepted freely? Yes. The dowager's voice softened. Then my work is done. Arabella's eyes filled. I do not know how to thank you. You may begin by calling me Augusta, the dowager said briskly, and by remembering that you are always worthy. I merely removed the obstacles. She waved Arabella away. Go. He is making himself miserable waiting. Sebastian was in the breakfast room, standing far too close to the window. He turned the instant she entered. There you are. He crossed the room and took her hands without hesitation. I half feared you would decide this was madness and run away. I considered it, she said honestly. Then I remembered I would miss you too much. He smiled, warm and unguarded. Come, I want to show you something. He took her riding across the estate, not as companion and duke, but as equals. They spoke with tenants together. They stood on the hill overlooking the land. Sebastian spoke of plans, of improvements, of a future that included her in every word. This will be your home, he said simply, if you wish it. It already feels like it is, Arabella replied. They decided to marry quietly, away from London's noise. The ruined chapel on the edge of the estate felt right, open to the sky. Honest? The dowager objected loudly, then smiled and agreed. The weeks that followed were full and strange. Arabella was fitted for gowns. She learned precedence and protocol. She stumbled, corrected herself, and tried again. You do not need to become someone else, Sebastian reminded her when doubt crept in. Only more yourself. The wedding day arrived cold and bright. Arabella walked through the chapel ruins with winter flowers woven into her hair. Sebastian waited for her with eyes full of wonder. They spoke their vows simply, clearly. When he kissed her, the dowager turned away to hide her tears. Life after marriage was not perfect, but it was real. Society whispered. Some disapproved. Many were curious. Sebastian did not care. Arabella learned to stand beside him without shrinking. She learned that authority could be quiet and still be strong. She learned that love did not require her to disappear. Years passed. Children came. Laughter filled Thornbury. The dowager aged but remained sharp, her satisfaction growing with every passing season. One summer evening, Arabella watched her children play while Sebastian sat beside her, his hand warm in hers. I was invisible once, she said softly. I thought that was safety. And now, he said, and now I am seen, she replied. And, loved, Sebastian kissed her hand. As you always should have been. Behind them, Thornbury Manor glowed with light. Ahead of them stretched a life built not on duty alone, but on choice, courage, and love. And the woman who had once believed she was nothing stood at the center of it all, exactly where she belonged.